our constitutional republic is under siege by the neo-Jacobins of the radical left, pushing socialist agendas that erode our freedoms. Engaging with your elected officials isn't just a right, it's a duty. Your voice ensures they uphold the rights of the individual, protect the Constitution, and resist the left's overreach. Visit govtracks.us to contact your elected officials and stay informed on legislation. The midterms are coming. Together, we can safeguard liberty and make sure America stays on the right track.
No fear, no political correctness, no wokeism. You're listening to Underground USA.
Thank you for tuning in to Underground USA's The Corner of the Bar podcast. My name is Frank Salvato. As most of us glow in the aftermath of the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, there are some among us who really hate everything that we stand for. One of them in particular is New York's mayor, a full-blown communist, Zorhan Mamdani. He took to the airwaves on the notable occasion to just castigate the United States. He tried to gin up flaws, he tried to amplify the grievance culture. Everything he said, from behind George Washington's desk, no less, was a condemnation of the United States and everything that it stood for. It's so egregious that I'm going to play it now so that you can hear how much of a jagoff this guy is.
As we mark 250 years, what do we see? We see a city of contradictions within a nation of contradictions. We see the wealthiest country in the history of the world, one where children go to sleep hungry, while the world's first trillionaire hungers for more. We see monopolies that dominate every industry and oligarchs who buy elections. We see masked agents terrorizing our streets, eating food cooked by our undocumented neighbors before spiriting them away in unmarked vans. We see a nation whose immense wealth has been built by those with calloused, dirt-streaked hands, those who toil on factory floors and chisel into stone. And we see a nation that has allowed so much of that wealth to be held instead in the soft hands of a precious few. Yes, we see America in a health insurance industry that exploits the sick, but that is not all we see when we look for America. We see it too in the nurse who works a double shift and then stops on her way home to check on an ailing neighbor. Yes, we see America in corporate landlords for whom negligence is a business model. We see it too in the father who tucks his children into bed beneath a ceiling stained with leaks, who wakes before dawn to go to work and still believes his country can do better by his family. Yes, we see America when we spend our tax dollars on bombs and bailouts, when we sell our elections to the highest bidder. Yet we see it just as clearly in every American who still believes this country belongs to we, the people. We see America each time neighbors link arms with neighbors, without asking how long they have lived here or what papers they have, as ICE invades our neighborhoods. We see America each time those young and old stand in the beating rain or the stifling heat to cast their ballots. We see America each time working people demand more, not just for themselves, but for their fellow Americans. There are some who respond to those who ask for more from America with a simple refrain. Love it or leave it, they say. But patriotism has never been about pretending our nation is without flaws. Patriotism is every act of righteous dissent. It is every march led under the heavy sun. It is every protest held a decade before its time. It is precisely because we love this nation that we will not leave it.
I don't know about you, but as this communist is telling everybody in New York to make sure you put your thermostats to 78 degrees while he and his enclave there are sitting in an air-conditioned office that some reports have down at 54 degrees. Do as I say, not as I do? Typical communist bullshit. We have to start identifying these people, and we have to start examining how they got to where they are so that we can interrupt that process. Communism is antithetical to freedom and liberty. Socialism is just a stepping stone to communism. I saw a post on social media and it bears repeating. There have been 4 notable revolutions in our contemporary time. Only one of them didn't result in poverty, mass murder, and the oppression of people. And that was the revolution that brought about the United States of America. Anywhere that Marxism and communism and socialism has been tried, it has resulted in a catastrophic failure. 2 genocides took place, one in Russia, one in China, when the communists came to power. They can't have anybody challenging them. Why did we survive? Because we believe our rights are inalienable and endowed by our Creator, something bigger than man. They believe government is the Alpha and the Omega. And that's why they can get rid of whoever they want to, and no one better say anything about it, otherwise you go too. We have this movement in the United States that they're calling democratic socialism. And as the drop-in that I use on Underground USA's Corner of the Bar podcast says, it's nothing more than a really nice way to say communism. Communism would kill the United States because it demands government owns the means of production. And we're starting to see that little by little by little in New York City, where now 40% of all of the places that you can rent in New York City, well, those rents are now frozen, which means that the landlords will not be able to do things like upgrade and keep maintenance going because there will be no profit in it. And when they get to a point where these buildings are run down, who do you think is going to step in and take them? BlackRock? Doubtful. It's going to be the city of New York. And then we have private property being confiscated by the government. That's what communism is. So as we move forward from our anniversary of 250, President Trump was damn right. Communism is our biggest foe that we have to face today. Yes, Islamism is a bad thing that's happening, and we have to do that too, but we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I'm asking everybody to go over to undergroundusa.com and read the featured story. Trump is right. Communism is America's greatest threat. I lay out the argument in detail. When we come back, I talk with Kyle Warren. We expound on this subject for all 3 segments at the Corner of the Bar.
You're listening to Underground USA.
Our republic, a government of the people, by the people, for the people, is founded on principles of individual liberty, private property, and limited government. Marxism stands in direct opposition to these ideals. It seeks to abolish private ownership and concentrate power in an all-encompassing state apparatus. History teaches us that Marxist regimes inevitably lead to authoritarianism, economic decline, and the erosion of personal freedoms. The promise of equality under this ideology comes at a grave cost: the loss of liberty itself. To preserve our republican form of government and safeguard future generations' freedoms, we must remain vigilant against any additional advance of Marxist thought within our society. For those who wish to understand this threat more deeply, we at Underground USA recommend Hillsdale College's free course, available online, titled Marxism, Socialism, and Communism. We encourage you to explore this valuable resource. Educate yourself thoroughly on this dangerous ideology, because knowledge is our strongest defense.
You're listening to Underground USA.
Welcome back to Underground USA's Corner of the Bar podcast. My name is Frank Salvato. As I do every Monday and Friday, I talk with Kyle Warren of The Kyle Warren Show, broadcast out of Los Angeles and syndicated nationally at a flagship station WGUL AM 860 The Answer in Tampa and Sarasota, Florida.
So the question, how do you compete with America, I think was probably asked by Zorhan Mamdani and his ilk And they probably said to themselves, well, you really can't compete with America. So we're going to have to give a 4th of July speech from Zorhan Mamdani that was, I don't know, one of the most depressing things I think that we've heard in a very, very long time. Somehow America is really super bad, but he's going to be there to, I guess, make it all better? Question mark? I don't know. But see, I think they realize they can't really compete with America. So they have to give you a version that they can tell you, oh, we're going to save you from this awful version of America that we're telling you about. They thought it was pretty pathetic. They take it very seriously, of course, because unfortunately you got a lot of people listening to this guy. But it is pretty pathetic. And it's simply not the case that America is terrible, it's evil, it's miserable, and you need Zorhan Mamdani and his ilk to save you. First off, of course, I hope that you had a very happy Independence Day, and I was wondering what some of your thoughts were on some of the big celebrations, especially in the Capitol.
Oh, I'm happy that it was something that was celebrated with gusto.
Yeah.
To use a word from back in the 70s. It's a day that deserves celebrating, and especially when it's on a hallmark anniversary like 250 years. So I was good with everything. I understand some locations had to postpone events, which was too bad because of the heat, but that's responsible, and then they'll do it later, and that's fine. Let's keep this going for the whole month, if not the whole year. So I hope everybody walks forward from July 4th, 2026, with a little bit more pride in their step when it comes to being American and the history that we have. And that's one of the reasons that I thought what Mamdani did was comical, almost. Whoa. There have been 4 major revolutions in contemporary time. Only one of them didn't end in the slaughter of millions of people. And that's because we believe our rights are bestowed to us by our Creator, and because we have a set of cool rules that limit government. So, Mamdani is of the ideology of the 3 other revolutions that happened that caused the slaughter of tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people. So when you compare them, it's night and day. I mean, it's night and day. So, yeah, he's going to once again promise everything that socialism and communism has promised, and it will never come to be, because in a communist setup, they own the means of production by force, and in socialism, they attempt to own everything by vote until it's taken by force. We're the only revolution that was about the individual and not the collective.
Well, Frank, you said a statement there, or a phrase that really, really hits home, and this has to do with the kinds of revolutions and the idea that only one didn't result in the slaughter of millions of people. And that caught my ear, because right now, of course, they're trying to sell this as this is the way to go, and we're going to fix it all, and it's all going to be affordable. But if you get down to the nitty-gritty with these communists, they're going to at some point say, yeah, but those executions were all necessary at some point, because, they didn't want to go along with what, the good we had for the people. In other words, in a very twisted way, they would probably justify that kind of thing and not think it's awful,
Of course, and you can see the seedlings happening in New York and California. It's for the good of everybody that we have to tax a certain demographic to death. It's for the good of everybody that we have to put so much limitation on a private property owner that they can't find any. There's no profit there. That capitalism dies. That the free market dies. It's for the good of the people. They always hide behind it's for the good of the people. But it's never for the good of the people, because sooner or later those limitations trickle down to the baseline. And then you have a set of haves and you have a set of have-nots, and the middle class is erased. And that's what's happening in California, in New York, and Illinois, and a lot of the major urban cities around the United States, where the democratic socialists have been elevated. And that's why we have to take this seriously. It is something that is chipping away at everything that we celebrated over the weekend. Donald Trump was right in his speech at Mount Rushmore. The greatest threat to the United States right now is communism, and it's coming from within. It is the American fifth column. And it's time that we stand up and make sure that we do what we have to do in our generation to make sure that it does not thrive, that communism does not thrive, that those roots do not get set, and that we maintain the liberty and the freedom that we've struggled for in every generation since 1776.
That is so very important, Frank, and very, very powerful. You're absolutely right. And this is the thing that we have to be so serious about right now. It's unfortunate because we thought that we went against communism already. But here we go again. We passed it 3 times in the House. We're going to try one more time on a budget reconciliation bill, and I think that will be the way to get it through the Senate and finally to the president's desk. That is Speaker Mike Johnson, who was on Fox News Sunday yesterday, and that's what he said about the Save America Act. And hopefully, maybe it'll be, is it the 4th time? Might be the charm. So what do you think? I mean, Mike Johnson is in there pitching to try to get this thing to go. Do you think that they will ultimately get it across the finish line?
Well, they've pared it down to 2 major elements, which is you have to prove citizenship to register, and you have to show photo ID. They jettisoned some of or they're preparing to jettison some of the other things like mail-in ballots, which I think can be something that is fought another day. Any element that helps to help verification at the polls is a good thing. I'm still incredibly, I'm beyond disappointed, and now I'm angry at John Thune. Mm-hmm. Just a moronic move not to kill the filibuster, seeing as how Democrats again have come forward saying, we're going to pack the court and we're going to get rid of the filibuster as soon as we get power back. So why won't he do that?
Yeah.
They've said it now boldly. They've said it on the Sunday shows. They've said it in the papers. They've said it every time they show up. This is what the Democrats are going to do, and they're going to ram through policies on a simple majority vote because they're going to get rid of the filibuster. So tell me why. You can't tell me it's the 4 people who usually go milquetoast and Democrat on us, because the House has already offered you a couple times we can do it in reconciliation. And I don't have the votes. Well, then you're a crappy leader. Yeah. If you don't have the votes when you have a mandate from the American people at over 82%, you're a crappy leader, and you should go. You should resign on your own accord because you're embarrassed. So let's see if they can pass the pared down one, and let's take that 60% victory here and work on the 40% later.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that's all you can do, unfortunately, but what a shame it would be if history would record that, well, this greatness that we're literally on the cusp of here, would be completely derailed because of, like you said, I couldn't say it any better, because he's being a crappy leader. And that's crappy leader. Exactly what it is.
And not only that, it's a betrayal. Not only of the Republicans who brought him to power, but of the electorate as a whole. When do you get 82% of the American people to agree on anything?
Yeah.
on anything. And you have this monumental number there saying this is what we want. Across all demographics, across all political affiliations, 82%. And we've got 4 idiots that a leader can't rein in and twist arms to get this passed for a super majority of the people who mandated it at the ballot box? This reeks of oligarchy. Well, we don't really care what the 82% want. We don't like these 4 people who sit over here sucking their thumbs don't like Donald Trump because he talks mean to me and won't take my phone calls and make me feel important.
Yeah.
Well, I don't care. The people don't care. This is what we voted for. You're supposed to execute it because that's the mandate. Not because you feel like it or you don't feel like it or you don't like somebody or they don't invite you over to dinner enough. I don't really care about your egos being shattered. You've got your marching orders. The American people voted for it. This is what they want in an overwhelming majority. And your job is to get it done.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I don't care how you do it. That's what you've been ordered to do by the American people. And remember, jackasses, you work for us. We don't work for you. And that's what they've forgotten. That's what John Thune has forgotten, and that's what the miserable 4 have forgotten. That it's not about them. It's about the American people and the mandate that we gave them. They're betraying the American people. They're traitors.
Well, and this is so important because it's not just, quote unquote, the Democrats, like, the Hakeem Jeffries and the Chuck Schummers and so forth, but we're talking about these Democrat socialists. I mean, they're able to piggyback onto the same kind of fraud and all the other stuff that goes on that we're trying to address here. So we can't do this to ourselves. This is awful. It's ridiculous.
If we had a national referendum on the ballot, it would have passed already.
Yeah.
Because that's what the people want. I don't understand how a group of elected officials who are tasked with now the Senate represents the people because they're directly elected. They don't represent their states anymore because they got rid of that. They passed an amendment for the direct election of senators. The 4 people who are refusing to do the mandate of the people could have been recalled by their state legislatures, admonished and replaced, had we not passed that ludicrous amendment that called for the direct election of senators. But now that they have to answer to the people. It's no longer this, we have to balance this and we have to consider that. And there's tradition on the Senate floor that we have to follow because it's just tradition and it's not written into the Constitution. It's just the way we do things and we don't want to change. I don't care.
Right.
I don't care if you don't want to change. Your job is to do the will of the people. And this one's clear as a bell rippling through the midnight sky. This is what we want. So the 4 people who think that they're above everybody else, who keep standing in the way of getting this passed, you're traitors. You violated your oath of office. You are traitors to the American people. And what's the penalty for treason?
Well, right. Well, but why are they not getting what they... Well, in other words, there's always a price, it would seem. And if you're Tom Tillis, I guess, isn't there something you want more than anything in the world in order to change this? But who knows?
These 4 people, the only thing they want is for it not to happen under Donald Trump.
Gotcha.
That's the only reason why they're doing this, because they don't like Donald Trump. And the fact is, we're not going to get a second stab at this. If the Democrats take power, we're screwed. Yeah. We just are. So John Thune has to develop a spine and get rid of the Mitch McConnellitis that he's got. And we have to twist arms and make things very uncomfortable for these 4 people going forward to say, we have to vote for the 60%, no ifs, ands, or buts. If you don't, all your committee assignments are being pulled, or I'm going to nuke the filibuster and we're going to pass it anyway. But this little game of ego has to stop in Washington with these four people and John Thune's weak leadership. It has to stop. We need to get something passed to protect the elections going forward. If not, you will see on a national scale what happened in Los Angeles during the mayoral race. They'll just keep counting ballots until they have enough to win the election. That's what they do in major areas in the country. It's what they do. And you'll see the floors flip, the House will flip, the Senate will flip, and then it's goodbye. It's goodbye to the agenda that was America First. It's goodbye to everything that wasn't Biden. And you're going to see the same miscreants start playing in the halls of power again that you did under Obama and Biden. And it's just going to happen all over again. I mean, you've got Hillary Clinton right now telling people who are supposed to be handing over documents, slow walk it. We're just trying to beat the clock.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I don't think, I'm so glad what you're saying, Frank, because we absolutely have to understand just how serious this is and what will happen. It's not about maybe it will or maybe it might be bad. It will be unbearably bad.
Yeah, they've said it point blank. What don't you get?
Right. Frank, we were talking a lot earlier in the show about Mamdani and the whole setup with that. But, we are going to be hearing so much more about socialism and about communism in the coming days and weeks as we head for these midterms. Is that going to really become the stark choices? When it was Reagan versus Carter, it was a very stark choice, but it's very different in that time frame than what we are looking at right now. I mean, this is an alien ideology that is here. These adherents think that this is their ticket and that somehow they are going to supplant. I'm not talking about just having, these are Democrat policies and they're detrimental, but they're looking to do something very, very serious to this country.
Well, I hope it's the discussion that we start having.
Yeah.
Because that would be the people who support the president and the people who support everything that we celebrated over the weekend, redefining the race like the left usually does. They've done their damnedest to make this about Donald Trump in every election. They want you to not like the guy, and that's the reason you shouldn't vote for him, because the policies really don't matter. You just don't like the guy. Let's get you frothing at the mouth, angry just at the sound of his name. And they've been doing that ever since he came down the escalator, because they needed to destroy him. Well, the narrative that's more correct is the one that we're starting to talk about now. The choice is very clear. It's about, do we stay on the same path that we've been on for 250 years, as flawed as it may be at times? Or do we just surrender to this dark cloud of socialism, then communism, because it always comes afterwards, it never doesn't, do we submit to that? That's what these elections with the Democratic Socialists are going to be all about going forward. And right now, they have control of the Democrat Party. Period. Dot. I don't care what Schumer says. Mm-hmm. And I don't care what Hakeem Jeffries says. They start to sweat when the far left starts to get really vocal. And that's because they know they can't control them and that they are the moving power behind their party. So it has to be that clear-visioned choice that we're starting to talk about. Do you want to stay on the same path that we've been on for 250 years, as flawed as it may have been in the past at times? Or do you want to try the failed experiment of communism just one more time to see if we can't get tens of millions of people executed here on American soil? And people may roll their eyes, it'll never come to that. Really? Have you seen a teen takeover yet in one of the major cities?
Right.
You just add weapons, and that's a problem.
That's true. And you just mentioned, Frank, America can be flawed at times, or the system has been flawed at times. And that is true because it's human beings and so forth. And also, I like how you bring out that phraseology, making a more perfect union. And that's exactly what we're on about. But here from Mamdani and his, I don't know what to call that speech, but it wasn't Happy 4th of July speech by any stretch. But he says, patriotism has never been about pretending our nation is without flaws. But we don't pretend our nation is without flaws. This guy is, in the dictionary, setting up a straw man and knocking it down. This guy would be right next to that definition because he goes, his whole speech was kind of like this. So they are trying to present a very flawed version of America to these young people primarily so that they can deceive them into believing, oh yeah, well, we gotta fix this.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. They're trying to form a narrative that becomes viral. That is, America is bad. Everything about America is bad. I mean, you listen to Jasmine Crockett, who was out there, and she's gone so far off the rails that the only reason the United States exists today is because of black women. Really? That's a little odd. But that's how zealous they get in their belief system. They never think things through. They never look at history. I doubt Jasmine Crockett took a history class, and if she did, she didn't read the book. Mamdani, he's a transplant that doesn't like America. His wife went to an Islamic conference overseas rather than celebrate America's 250 as the first woman of New York City.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Oh, it tells volumes. It really does. Yeah, and he's sitting behind the George Washington desk. I mean, I don't know what that was, but there wasn't, and all his the people that were flanking him, evidently recently naturalized American citizens, they all had a little American flag, but there was like nothing else in that whole shot that made you think, we're happy, we're celebrating.
The fact that he did that from behind Washington's desk made me want to puke.
Yeah, it's insulting. Yeah,
insulting is the
nice word.
The nice word to use. It was unacceptable as far as I'm concerned, and Mamdani must go at the first available point. But that's up to New York City voters. They didn't show up for the election. They allowed this person to come in with a minority of the votes. And now they're screwed. They've got to take 40% of the private property when it comes to apartments. Their rents have been frozen. So that means the people who own those buildings will not be able, as the prices skyrocket in New York, landlords will not be able to fix the buildings, and they'll probably get fined for them. And when the fines accrue, the city will end up taking the buildings. And now you've got confiscation of private property, which is communism.
Exactly. And you know what? Those buildings are not going to get fixed up and become showplaces. They're going to look like they do in Cuba. Ultimately, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Well, you're going to have a city of slums and vacant buildings because the corporations are leaving. And not just in New York, in Chicago as well, Illinois as well. New York, California, they're all leaving because they're killing the golden goose. They don't get it, or they do.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I mean their agenda has been the installation of socialism going to communism all along. So for the last 25 years, I've been warning of the American Fifth Column and the Marxists that are on this march. It was a quiet march. They organized, they captured the education system, they captured the media, they captured the institutions. Now they see the goal line, and it's close for them. And they're not hiding it anymore. They're going straight for it. So it would have been easier to stomp this out 20 years ago when some people were saying, hey, you better pay attention. But now if you want to stomp it out, it's going to take some work because you got to capture the minds of a couple generations.
Yeah.
Generation Alpha and Generation Z. You've got to capture them. And when they've been promising them free stuff for 30 years, 40 years, and they've made it easier for them not to have to be productive? What do you expect?
Yeah. Yeah, this is frightening, and this is, like we're talking about, this is going to be the defining thing. I mean, there's so much happening in these midterms from this particular issue that we're talking about here, but then also, as you mentioned earlier, it would stop America first entirely. There'll be nothing but, quote, investigations and, all this other stuff. Yeah.
Impeachments.
Yeah.
The Raskin's already said it point blank. The second they get back in it, he's leveling impeachment. They've got it printed up already.
Yeah. Yep.
It's what they want to do. They want to pack the court, get rid of the filibuster, and as soon as they get rid of the filibuster, again, we're screwed.
Yeah.
Because it's not your loyal Democrat Party taking over. It's the Democrat facade fueled by communism that is set to take place if we don't show up at the polls in November.
Yeah. And Frank, this is the dose of reality that we need out there, because this is so important, and we can't fail this one. Not in the least bit.
The failure is not an option.
America First isn't just a slogan. It's a promise to put your family's security and prosperity before globalist interests. We're talking about achieving a golden age where our borders are finally locked down, ending the chaos and protecting our communities from drugs and crime. It's about Liberation Day for our economy, where fair trade replaces the great ripoff that hollowed out our cities and towns. Think about it. Manufacturing is coming home, creating millions of jobs for hard-working Americans. We're cutting the red tape and returning power to you by sending education control back to the states, where parents actually have a voice. On the world stage, it's peace through strength. No more endless wars, no matter what the propagandist left says. Just bold leadership that commands respect and keeps us safe without wasting American lives or treasure. This is about restoring American greatness to a time before the destruction of Obama and Biden, and making sure our best days are right in front of us, because when America wins, you win.
As we wrap up here today, I want to ask you once again to go over to undergroundusa.com and read the featured piece, Trump is Right. Communism is America's greatest threat. It lays out the argument about why this is a fact. And we all really must stand up and do our part. And one of those parts is to educate our children. We can't count on the education establishment to do that, because they've been co-opted by the Marxists that are pretty much leading the march. We have to take it upon ourselves to have conversations with not only our acquaintances and our friends and our families about this very serious topic, but if you're a parent, you've got to sit down and you've got to engage your children on this. A great resource is Hillsdale College's free course. It's online and it's suitable for all ages, especially if a parent's sitting with a child. Marxism, Socialism, and Communism. It's a 6-lesson course, and it covers all of the dangers that these three isms project onto a free world. It's going to be up to us to make sure that future generations understand that communism, socialism, Marxism all the way around, they end in nothing but poverty, oppression, and death. It's our responsibility to the free world and to our country to make sure that everybody understands this, because we're losing generations. We're losing Generation Z and Generation Alpha already. They think socialism is something that's cool, and maybe it should be tried. Well, if you know the history of that, the opposite is always true. If you like the podcast, please head on over to undergroundusa.com and subscribe. You can help us out by becoming a paid subscriber, but you don't have to. You can go ahead and use it for free. That comes along with every article, podcast, and every evening news brief directly into your inbox. It keeps you up to date without spending hours and hours trying to dissect the bullshit that the mainstream media wants to feed you. You've been listening to Underground USA's The Corner of the Bar podcast. No fear, no political correctness, and no wokeism. My name is Frank Salvato.
Ever notice how some politicians try to sell you democratic socialism like it's just a friendly neighborhood upgrade? They use the word democratic to make it taste better, like putting cheese on broccoli. But don't be fooled. At its core, it's still socialism. It's the same ideology that wants the government to run your healthcare and your schools, essentially handing over the commanding heights of our economy to so-called experts and bureaucrats. They promise free everything, but we know nothing is actually free. It's paid for with massive taxes and the destruction of the private industries that actually make our country run. It replaces your personal choice with government mandates. Look at history. Socialism is undefeated when it comes to creating misery and equality and poverty. We are a constitutional republic built on individual liberty and competition, not state control and government dependence. The United States thrives on freedom, not socialism light. Let's keep it that way.
A free and independent media is the backbone of our great republic. So it's crucial to have media outlets that aren't influenced by big tech censorship or the leftist mainstream media complex. But that means supporting journalistic outlets that bring us the truth without spinning facts to push a narrative. For less than the cost of a cup of coffee once a month at Starbucks, you can support the free speech mission of undergroundusa.com, an independent, reader-supported, and sometimes irreverent podcast and publication that gives you the real story without the bias. Go to undergroundusa.com/UUSA. That's undergroundusa.com/UUSA to receive a 25% discount on an annual subscription, bringing every new podcast and article directly into your email inbox, circumventing the censors and fact-checkers. Remember, knowledge is power, and staying informed is one of the best ways to protect our republic. Go out there and seek the truth, my friends. Subscribe to undergroundusa.com today.